Hi everyone, it's me. If you're new here, my name is Alanna and I'm a Canadian, but I live here in the UK. And if you're not new here, hey, how's it going? It is actively raining sideways. Recently, I went home to Canada and I'm obviously now back in England, but every time I go between the two countries, it's like you get that proper reverse culture shock, and it becomes painfully obvious that the stuff that I was doing in Canada that is socially acceptable, absolutely don't do it here. So I made a list of 9 surefire ways to piss off the English. Disclaimer, I don't think you should actually do these things. But you're a grown adult and you can do whatever you like. Starting off strong with number 1, we have interrupting. Now, this is one of those ones that I just didn't notice, but once I noticed it, I couldn't unnotice it. My friends were doing it, my family were doing it. It's not done in like a malicious way, like you're trying to be rude, you're trying to interrupt that person. It's like you're so excited to talk to this person and you want to like share so much so quickly that you interrupt. And I would be actually surprised if Canadians even notice that they do this. Because when I came back to England and caught myself interrupting someone, whoops. Now I've lived in England almost 10 years, which is crazy. 10 years is just around the corner. Having an existential crisis over it, don't worry about it. Number 2, this one still throws me. It's when you ask, "You all right?" and expect a detailed answer. "You all right?" This one still trips me up. Somebody asks me, "You all right?" My gut reaction, the North American in me wants to like explain how I am, really, like the details of it. And that's absolutely not what that English person is looking for. In North America, if you were to ask someone, "You all right?" or "Are you all right?" the connotation is more like, "Oh my God, are you all right?" And so your reaction is like, "Yeah, no, I'm fine." Like, and then you start explaining yourself and what you're going through and all the nitty gritty, but that's really not the point of the question when you're in England. When an English person asks you all right, you're really just supposed to give the briefest of responses, maybe just a "yeah, you," like they do not care. They're not looking for your life story. They're just trying to be polite, but not too personal. And even though I've been here almost 10 years, this one still is not normal to me. And I can only wonder how many more years it'll take until it's natural for me. Number 3, this one kills my mom every time she comes to visit, and that is petting a stranger's dog. I love dogs. I am desperate for a dog. I can't wait when the time comes that I live in a place that could accommodate a dog. Get ready, because all of my content is going to become insufferable. More so than it already is. And there is no wondering where I get that love of dogs. My mom. It's that simple. If my mom sees a dog, she will pet the dog. You cannot stop her. And in Canada, that's quite normal. It's acceptable as part of sort of the social interacting with strangers vibe. It's very normal to just pet a dog. We went on a walk in our neighborhood back in Ontario, and there was a dog sort of halfway up someone's quite long driveway, and my mom very confidently and comfortably walks up this stranger's driveway to pet this dog, and then has a full-blown conversation with the owner who's like outside gardening. That is totally normal, but I cannot imagine doing that here in England, especially down here in Kent. That's where I live. I find Southerners to be a little bit more reserved, a little bit more private, a little bit more closed off. And so the idea of just like walking up to someone and just straight up petting their dog without any sort of communication or asking is just like a no-no. Don't do it. Even the dogs here, this is so weird. So in Canada, if you walk by a dog, the dog's gonna like look at you. It's gonna maybe pull a little bit towards you because it knows that it will get pet from strangers. Here in England, you walk past all the dogs. At least again in Kent, in the south, you walk past the dogs. The dogs don't even really look at you. They don't really pay attention to you because they know you're not gonna pet them. And one final story here. I was out with one of my girlfriends who has a dog. And she popped into a shop, so I was just watching the dog for like 30 seconds. And this woman comes up and was like, "I'm so sorry, can I pet your dog?" And she gives the dog a little pat on the head. She's like, "Oh my goodness." And it's like, "Thank you." Like actually like thanks me for letting her pet the dog and walks on. Then later that same day, we were at a cafe and this other woman comes up and is like, I'm so sorry, can I pet your dog? And she's petting the dog. She's like, oh my goodness, you know, like absolutely love this dog. And then again, thanks us, like, thank you so much for letting me pet this dog. And the one thing that stood out in this sort of day interaction, both of the women had North American voices. They were not English. I couldn't tell if they were American or Canadian. They just kind of had that stereotypical North American accent, kind of like mine. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. We love to pet dogs in North America. Number 4, another way you can piss off English people is cutting food North American style. In North America, I don't know how, I don't know the history of this, maybe somebody in the comments can give it a bing, but in North America, typically, you cut food with the knife in your right hand, right? You're most likely to be right-handed. You cut the food with your knife in your right hand, and then you switch sides, you switch utensils, and have your fork in the right hand. And it's one of those things that you don't really think about what you're doing, you just do it, right? That's just natural. For most people, not everybody. In England, I find most people don't switch hands, so you have usually your fork in your left hand, you have your knife in your right hand, and you're not switching, you just eat with the left hand. The switching thing, I think, looks and maybe feels a bit childish and a little bit awkward. And while we're talking about food, number 5, asking for a to-go box. When I was in Canada, we ate out just a couple of times, and every single time we were asked if we wanted a to-go box. That wasn't us asking as the diners, that was the servers asking, you know, as they're cleaning up the table, as they're taking away our plates, if anyone had like enough left over, they would be the ones to ask, hey, do you want us to wrap this up? Do you want a to-go box? When I've spoken about this before, some English people say, yeah, that's because Canadians are so fat and their portions are huge. And well, maybe, but I wouldn't say that's always true. I think it's part of the culture, and it's also like a nice way to cut down on food waste. If you do have some left over, you have 2 options. You either take it home and have it, or they throw it out. Which would you prefer? I think the to-go box is getting a bit more common in England. Not everywhere, of course, and I think it's more of a case like you need to ask for it. But in Canada, as part of the culture, the servers will ask rather than just assume you want to throw out the food that you've left. Number 6, I gotta adjust. I am losing feeling in my butt. Number 6, how could you possibly annoy an English person? Having a full-blown conversation with a stranger.
A northerner has been accused of terrorizing London by walking around saying hello.
This is another thing I've noticed, particularly with Southerners. At first, I thought Southerners were just like a bit stuck up, a bit like standoffish and maybe rude, but I honestly think it's because they're so polite that they don't want to be a bother and they don't want to annoy people. I've had full-blown, deep conversations with strangers in Canada, cashiers, people waiting in line, people on the street, out on a hike, like full-blown, and not just like, hey, how's the weather? Like full-blown conversations. I wouldn't do that here in England unless there were very clear like social cues that that person was interested in having a conversation. I made a video when I was still in Canada, and I mentioned we went out to a shop, a couple of my friends and we were talking to the cashier, and we had this full-blown conversation. The shop was empty, so there wasn't like a queue of people behind us, and we were stood there talking with her for like maybe 10 minutes, maybe a bit less than that. And it was just a really nice interaction. It was very friendly, it was just fun, it was nice. And as we were packing up our stuff and leaving, she said to us like, hey guys, thank you so much for the little chat. I really needed it today. It's been a weird day. And you just feel like, I don't know, it feels great. Not that I want that all the time, because sometimes, you know, I want to run into Sainsbury's, I want to use the self-checkout, and I want to run back out. I don't always want to have a full-blown conversation with every stranger that I pass, but I do find it's just less of a thing here. If you do want to sort of test the waters to see if that English person might want to have a conversation with you, I can only suggest start talking about the weather and go from there. Number 7, something that's a little bit awkward here, and it took me a while to get used to it, is this concept of over tipping or tipping unnecessarily. That's a hard word to say. unnecessarily. You know what I mean. In Canada and in America, it's expected that you will tip at certain places, restaurants, bars, hair salon, taxi, any of those types of places. And I want to say right now, the expected tip is 15%, which is not nothing. In England, I find tipping is much more situational and it is not expected. It's a nice thing to do, especially if you had good service, but it is certainly not expected at every instance. The argument I've heard is that they don't need to do that in England because those types of people and those jobs earn a living wage, where they have to do it in North America because you don't earn enough to survive. So I thought, let's give it a bing. And I did. From what I could see, Ontario's general minimum wage is 17.60 Canadian per hour, and that's roughly about £9.40. England, the national minimum wage is $12.21 for those 21 and above. So it is higher in England, not loads higher, but it is higher. But it's one of those things in Canada where it's like, if you are going out to eat or you're going out somewhere where it's expected that you'll tip, you shouldn't go out if you can't afford to then tip. Does that make sense? It is expected, it is part of the service, it's part of the interaction. So yeah, I've seen it before where it's like, don't go out. If you can't afford that 15%, don't go out. Sound off in the comments. Number 8, this one's a fun one. Do you know how you can piss off an English person? Over complimenting. I found that English people can be kind of funny when it comes to compliments. It's almost like if you overdo it, there's like an embarrassment there. There's like, well, you're being too complimentary, that it's seen as insincere. It's just kind of like it's an interesting dynamic.
Darling, you look incredible.
Oh, stop it. No, I haven't slept last night, so I feel crazy.
No,
you look so beautiful.
Nah, no, I don't. Honestly, I've literally, I'm like dew on and everything. I've got like so many spots.
Oh,
it's actually
if
ridiculous.
you had your haircut, it's
No,
stunning.
I did, but oh my god, I hate it. It's
No, it's
horrible.
absolutely gorgeous.
No, it's not.
And I think this is also influenced by like the idea of bants or like banter. So like mocking and being kind of awful to your loved ones, but done with love. You know, like that is a real way that people show love. So when you do the sort of the opposite and you're like complimentary and maybe a bit over complimentary, it's kind of awkward. It's kind of like the English don't really know what to do with a compliment. In Canada, you can be super complimentary. It's not seen as weird or insincere or awkward. It's just very nice. I was out in Toronto with my family. We were going to a Jays baseball game, and my mom had this like cool jersey, sort of like specialty jersey on, and multiple people stopped her on the street and was like, I love your jersey. I've never seen that before. I think part of it too plays into like the English sort of stiff upper lip and sort of like cool, calm and collected, and nothing's going to ruffle my feathers, and you take everything in stride. And when someone is sort of like lovey-dovey complimenting, it's sort of like, it's hard to interact with that. Does that make sense at all? Number 9, this one actually gave me secondhand embarrassment, and that is being too loud. It somehow got even darker. The clouds outside are black. I hope we don't lose power. Anyway, if we take America, Canada, and England, America is the loudest. I think that goes without saying. It's not rude, it's just Americans tend to speak louder. It suits the situation. It doesn't stand out because everybody's louder. Then you have Canada. Canada is a funny country. We take things from both sides. We take things from England and we take things from America, and we've created this like mutant in-between country that is Canada. So Canadians are quieter than Americans, but down below you have the English. English are much quieter than all of us, and it is so noticeable when you hear an American voice. And I'm sure everybody watching has been in that situation where you're out and about and it's kind of quiet, and all of a sudden you can hear that American voice talking way too loud. So I actually was out with a girlfriend from America, great girl, great person. We were out walking and it was kind of quiet, right? There's lots of people out, but people were talking amongst themselves, and it was just sort of a quiet stroll down a pedestrian street. and she was talking so loud that I felt so embarrassed, like secondhand embarrassment. I was like, people are looking, like her voice was like echoing off the buildings and stuff, and I was like, can you not hear how loud you are speaking? So I find like you need to read the room, right? Even Canadians, Americans especially, just read the room and the volume around you and adjust your voice accordingly. Because there is something that is so cringy and secondhand embarrassment of being out and about, and I can hear that voice. And I think you can hear it too. To be honest, I could probably keep going with ways to piss off the English. I have lived here almost 10 years. I've learned a lot in that nearly decade. But I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you would like to watch perhaps the flip side to this video, things that I don't like about England, check out this video. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!